Kash Patel exposes federal agent probe. And I was like, what does that mean? Well, that's right. FBI Director Patel announced there is an ongoing criminal investigation against the personnel involved in that controversial, of course, Biden-era Arctic frost, which probed a lot of different people and got a lot of phone records. Many members of Congress, people that were like lightly adjacent. These were people who maybe just were Republicans, maybe just conservatives, didn't necessarily have anything to do with specific Trump-era things. And of course, now we are seeing, once again, some positive movement from the FBI.
What we're finding out is that Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, has disclosed that there is an ongoing criminal investigation into federal personnel involved in Arctic frost, as well as he said to Just the News, I'm not going to let people get off the hook or get a hall pass. It takes a little time to break down the disease temple that they built here in Washington for decades. But I harp on the fact that this investigation should show the world how we're going to operate in every single investigation. So Kash Patel obviously has been in the news a lot lately because of the catching of the alleged pipe bomber in the January 6th and January 5th pipe bombing incident, where pipe bombs were placed at the DNC and the RNC. They did not go off. However, it took nearly 5 years to catch and apprehend the individual responsible for that. So what we are looking at now is not only is this a revelation that there is a criminal investigation ongoing and how the agents operated, how things were taken, the violation of maybe individuals' constitutional rights by the FBI pushes back and hopefully blocks some of this from ever happening again. But I think it's a very important step that we know it's not just an internal investigation. It's not just an inspector general of the DOJ looking into what we could do better, where we went wrong. There is actual ongoing criminal investigation looking into the actions of federal agents and federal employees as they weaponized the DOJ and the FBI against conservatives just a few years ago.
It takes a little time to break down the disease temple that they built here in Washington for decades, but I harp on the fact that this investigation should show the world how we are going to operate in every single investigation, Arctic frost specifically. We have a huge investigation going. That is public. I can say that. Yeah. And it's going to take a little more time to peel it back. But no, I'm not going to let people get off the hook or get a hall pass.
This is at a time when you're also seeing a lot of other moves. You're seeing that the House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed Jack Smith to sit before them for a deposition, so a closed-door deposition on December 17th, just a week from today. Then you also look at that they are requiring documents be provided by Friday so they can prepare for that deposition. Remember, they had asked for him to come speak, and he said, I'll do it in public. I'll go for the show. You know, it's much easier to defend yourself in an open hearing when there's a lot of partisan made-for-TV moments than it is in a true deposition behind closed doors. So Jim Jordan called his bluff and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to subpoena you, and you're going to come sit before us in a deposition in the middle of December. So good on that. We'll see what comes out of that. We also know that Chuck Grassley over on the Senate side saying that they will be holding hearings about Arctic frost and Jack Smith in the new year, in January, early on. They'll be having that on the Senate side. So congressional oversight's taking place. The FBI itself is doing a criminal investigation of the bad actors involved in this. At the same time, Elise Stefanik, who is running for governor of New York, still in the House of Representatives, good friend of the broadcast, has gotten a provision into the National Defense Authorization Act, which is where the funding of all of our national defense comes through. This is the appropriations bill for that. A provision in there that forces the FBI to disclose the initiation of a counterintelligence assessment or investigation against a candidate for federal office or a current elected official within 15 days of its launch. So putting into law, and the National Defense Authorization Act is expected to pass. It is a very essential piece of legislation that keeps our military and all of our national defense funded. There may be some pushback on little provisions, but by and large, the 3,000-page bill typically goes through because both sides see it as important. So if her provision remains, it will then be codified into law. that if the FBI is looking into a candidate or a current elected official, as they did during Arctic Frost, they have to notify that person within 15 days. So you got about a 2-week head start of trying to get your information before you have to notify them.
I've been working on this provision for a number of years, and it goes back to when James Comey, former FBI director, testified in an open hearing. He did not follow proper protocol when he illegally opened Crossfire Hurricane targeting President Trump in 2016. He did not notify Congress. That closes this Comey loophole, and it pushes back on the illegal weaponization of the FBI to target political candidates like they have done with President Trump.
What's nice is maybe unlike previous administrations, I would even say the previous Trump administration, you have an FBI that's not just showing corruption, not just saying this is what happened or is happening, saying we're going to take action. You hear that from Elise. You hear that from Kash Patel, people who are actually putting probes in place that are investigating. It's not just here's what happened, whoops. And I think he even mentioned that. Like, they're not just going to get a hall pass for these kind of egregious behavior.
Here's what's interesting to me as well, and I am curious where it all stems from. Was the trust in the FBI so broken by what we saw from Comey and Wray over that long period, which was even during the Trump administration, because Christopher Wray was put to that position during the Trump administration the first time, and we saw the bad actions of the Bureau continue because they, the entire time, were weaponized against President Trump and against conservatives. Then we saw that get hyperspeed, put into hyperdrive almost, in the Biden administration, where they were going after just normal, everyday conservatives. But what I'm seeing, you see in the world of X with all the influencers and things, that they've created a anti-FBI bias so much that even President Trump's handpicked people are the bad guys still.
Right.
And I see that in the chat right now. Like, what is Kash Patel going to do anything about it? Well, he is the director of the FBI. And if there's a criminal investigation into this, then what you can logically conclude is that if the evidence is there can be charges that come from this. Not just you're fired, maybe you still get your pension, but actual criminal charges.
Yeah, you've built a bias against the federal government and the federal government branches and all the different sort of departments. It is hard to break that. Now you are seeing the FBI trying to rebuild even their own, maybe stumbles in the first 6 months, by now doing things like the January 6th bomber or this issue specifically, Arctic Frost, saying, look, you can trust us, you can rebuild.